All right, and welcome back here once again to my YouTube here. This is the second and final one of the day. I'm probably going to not be doing anything for the rest of this week as far as a YouTube video goes, unless something does come up that is worth talking about. Who knows? I really do want to talk more about Jim Cornette and Vince Russo and that little debate that goes on there, and what goes in and how I feel about it. I've really been talking about that one too, and with a lot of people just on my radio show. But again, story for another time. I'm trying to hold off on that one till after the first of the year. I do want to get back into one that has to do with Austin St. John and Jason David Frank from the Power Rangers. And this goes out to that Mario Cave, or Dr. Cave, or whatever he calls himself. I think he's nothing more than a fake with the name. You know, he definitely showed himself to be a fake with the way things have always changed on his YouTube. And yes, I am talking straight to you, Mario. I'm talking to others that may also agree with this subject. This isn't about a war. And I'm with Mr. Movie here on this one here. This has nothing to do with creating a war with the pro-Tommy people, the pro JDF people, or with the haters of any sorts. This has nothing to do with a war. And I did a little something back with my blog talk, which I also was able to make into a slideshow and put here before I had a camera on YouTube. And he accused me of clearly being a Jason David Frank fan. Well, I want to say something to this guy because he needs to understand a few things. I was very, very impartial, and I was being very honest, and I looked things through absolutely. I even listened to other people who did their YouTubes here talking about this. Some of them did more than one. Mr. Movie, I think, probably is one of the ones that does the best. I'm not going to single him out as being the best, but he did an excellent job, and that much I have to admit. But a lot of people who did their research, including my own research, went into effect here. And for this person to come out and say what he did, trying to say I'm clearly a Jason David Frank fan, and he tried to use one thing, you are nothing but someone who wants to start trouble. You are a troll, you are a hater of everything, period. You were just, I told you to prove me wrong on something, and you reached so far. Let me tell you something. You chose something that someone did talking about hating Jason David Frank. I don't throw hate around. Or anything like that, but you did. And you wanted to say, oh, Austin St. John doesn't have red flags? There are a lot of little red flags they can find. I can find little red flags on myself if I want to. But to get to the point, to get to the matter here, and this is where I'm going to get into it. This is so you can learn. This is so everyone can know what you are. Because you made yourself out to be an absolute Christian conservative, which you're not. You made yourself out to be a diehard wrestling fan, which you're not. You made yourself out to be a lot of things, and now we're just seeing you be the typical black man. You're not patriotic. You're nothing. And I'm just going to say that straight out. You're nothing. The only thing you tried to say how my contributions are invaluable. What of value have you put into play? You're a wannabe. You wanted to show off things that you did on Blog Talk because you were able to do a half hour for free. Where I was featured on Blog Talk and able to do 3 hours at a time, unlimited time, where you can only do one show for a half hour. So don't give me anything that you have to say. And this goes out to everybody else now to jump in on this matter a little bit more about the whole Jason David Frank Austin St. John deal. My knowledge of things and what everyone said and even what I researched is, of course, the hate seems to be spewing more with Jason David Frank. Now, before people understand this, that's what it is. We're talking about what we're seeing on the surface. Does JDF have issues with Austin St. John? Definitely does. Should he confront Austin St. John? Absolutely. Should Austin St. John confront Jason David Frank? Absolutely. One of the things that I did say in in the video that I did with a radio show was that Austin St. John did not speak up a little bit more and still hasn't. Now, as much as people want to respect that, I think that there has to be something said. Because we don't know for sure what's true and what's not. Even if stuff were to come out of Austin St. John's mouth with his side, we still don't know for sure what's true and what's not. The only person that has came out and said anything where it involves Austin St. John to what Jason David Frank had to say that even comes close has been Amy Jo Johnson, who was Kimberly, the Pink Power Ranger. Now, understand this. Is I did not confirm anyone has taken any sides. I didn't confirm a side. I don't have a side in this one. I really don't. I got a lot of respect for Austin St. John with what he did on Power Rangers and what he's done after Power Rangers. He definitely deserves respect. We don't need to go into it all. I got respect for Jason David Frank and what he's doing to expand himself, especially with his love for martial arts. So, I got respect for both guys. I do. There was a Comic-Con that was supposed to happen here in South Florida that was going to go throughout, July 3rd, July 4th, July 5th. It was going to go throughout the week, whatever the week the 4th of July was. Jason David Frank and Austin St. John were both set up to be on that. Jason David Frank was one of the first to agree. I guess as soon as Austin St. John came on, Jason David Frank canceled. I don't know for sure. He promised he made a commitment to his family and his daughter, with what was said to me by my knowledge. I don't think Jason David Frank would use that as an excuse just to get out of something. I think family does come first, and I think JDF could be telling the truth there. And I think JDF, who is an absolute family man, would say that. Excuse me one moment. Great green tea. So I just want to let that point be known. Second point. JDF has been the one talking about it when it's been asked about him. And JDF has been the one who's been all over it. The challenge is still out there. He did this, he did that. He talked about how Austin St. John killed people in the ring and told lots of stories. The only thing that I could really see from Austin St. John that would say anything about this is how young and naive he was, because he was the youngest one out there. He was very young and naive. And that's something he says a lot. He does not put Jason David Frank down, although I do think some of the things he did say could have had the wrong premise, saying we kind of like each other too much when it was asked who would win between him and JDF. He says, I don't think that could happen because we like each other way too much. And of course, he could be saying that in the premise for it could go many different ways. One of them could be sarcasm. The other one can be just to be funny and just blow it off. And telling Jason David Frank to grow up. But, he really, and when it really came down to the problem, and he was really being called out on it, he says, you got to talk to Jason David Frank. Talk to JDF. And that's his way of, sometimes just avoiding the question, which some people say, which you can look at it that way. Other things, it's probably not worth it. There's just so many ways you could go with this. And like I said, where he said he killed people in the ring, he had all these stories and whatnot. We're not going to get into them all. He had to save a person and he got cut saving this person, and the person he had to be down there on the, and while he was trying to get down there on the set. It's just, the only one who ever confirmed anything is like I said, is Amy Jo Johnson. And if you ever look at Amy Jo Johnson with her YouTube, she's done video replies and people who responded to her, like David Yost, Walter Emmanuel Jones, Jason David Frank, all have done something to respond to her with the whole Power Rangers. You never once saw Austin St. John. And you'll see those two people also make a response to anything with Austin St. John on it. You notice there's no Jason David Frank, there's no Amy Jo Johnson there with that one. You also notice you don't see anything with Austin St. John where that goes. Isn't it time to be adults here? I think Austin St. John will admit to some of the things he did, just like I have to admit that Jason David Frank has to admit that maybe he was wrong in areas, which he probably, it's sounding more like he probably should have. But to really look at this and to really look at the manner, Jason David Frank did have something said about him because Emma Lazarus, I forget how you say her last name, she was the Yellow Ranger Kira on Power Rangers Dino Thunder. If you notice there, she did say that Jason David Frank was someone who was very hard to work with, that she took up issues with. Now, this was something that was done more in an interview that was written. I have not seen any real interview with it. I'd like to hear it come out of Emma's mouth. So, I mean, it would just be something to say there. If someone has anything with an interview where she does talk about that, you can put that up on my YouTube. But in the end, that's what was said there. But in the end, you look at it, it is JDF's mouth running the most where it goes. Austin St. John, I think, needs to talk a little bit more about this. And Jason David Frank needs to talk less about this. I think the people want to see this settled. I think everyone wants to see as much of the original Mighty Morphin Power Ranger cast at a Morphicon or a Comic-Con or whatever kind of a con you're going to do, whatever type of convention you're going to do, period, just to bring that back, to have that reunion. Of course, obviously we won't have Twee, God rest her soul, but you've seen people been able to work just as much with Austin St. John as they did with Jason David Frank on these gatherings, with the exception to Amy Jo Johnson. And Jeremy Borsch, who played Adam, I have not really seen that much where he goes with them. But, it's just Jason David Frank, yeah. I mean, we're talking about two people that were probably the most recognized and strongest members of the Power Ranger franchises ever. People think of Tommy the Green Ranger and Jason the Red Ranger all the time. All the time. And it's time to let it go. It's time to let it go. So, I mean, that's just my thoughts on this matter. I mean, I've seen several different people from Power Rangers. They're able to get along with JDF. They're able to get along with Austin St. John that have been there. There are still some that haven't been around Austin St. John, but I think it's stupid. I think it's stupid if anyone's going to hold a grudge. I think Austin St. John needs to really just come forth and just say, look, I'm on the same side as you. I said, I can admit to my mistakes, but can you admit to yours? And it's all Austin St. John has to do. Just explain yourself. Tell your side. I mean, look what was done in pro wrestling to the Ultimate Warrior. Then when it came time for the Ultimate Warrior to explain his side, he did. And when it came down to it, Warrior wound up having a new video done to help redeem him, and he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. So let's look at that. This was before Ultimate Warrior passed away, Jim Hellwig. So, I mean, a lot of things were taken back. A lot of things were taken back, and I think a lot of us can really look at that and say it's, that was the manly thing to do. I think the manly thing for these two to do is to confront each other, admit to their mistakes, admit to where they're wrong with one another, admit to shouting out a little too much hot air, JDF. I got respect for JDF. I got respect for Austin St. John. I'm not taking a side. One side needs to speak up. The other side needs to tone it down. That's all I'm going to say with that. I'm not going to take a side on this. I don't think it's worth it. Other Power Rangers, anyone from Mighty Morphin to Zeo who've worked with Jason David Frank or Austin St. John, and including the Forever Red, and that's the other thing. If you were so dead set against Jason David Frank, or Austin St. John, JDF, why would you have done what you did on Forever Red? Think about it. If Austin St. John was going to be there for the grand 20th episode, ending to the 20th season of Power Rangers, on Power Rangers Super Mega Force, Would you have said that I'm not going to come? After you publicize how you do this for $1, and now you're not going to come? After what happened with the Comic-Con, you'd have more people against you. And I'm not against you. I'm not against Austin. I'm just asking that this matter be settled. And Power Ranger fans, longtime Power Ranger fans, people that grew up on you, even the adults that liked you that are now middle-aged and crazy, would just get along. It's time to end the grudges. You both were really young at the time, so it's time to just get past it. Let it go. And for all you people who, whether you're pro Austin or pro JDF, or you're against either one of them, or you're against both of them, or for both of them, it's time to end the grudge. It's time to end the feud. It's time for Power Ranger fans to get something that they want, and that's it. And it's time for everyone to be an adult about this. Shake hands, have a convention, have the first Morphicon be just you two with your matters settled, talking about your situations and how you settled it, and how you both were wrong, and how you both had your valid points. So, that's all I'm going to say there. That's all I'm going to say there about that one. I'd like to see a lot more happen, but you're not. My knowledge on this can go far, but I'm not going to do any more. It's not worth it, and that's all I'm going to say. Hopefully, they can get back together. I'm not taking a side. I can't take a side. I respect everyone who's done their videos talking about this matter. That's it. And now I'm babbling. Probably was babbling 5 minutes before, 10 minutes before. People may say this is all babble. It's all good. It's all good, though. I just want to say, end it. End this feud. Let's be adults here. Let's be men. And let's just give people the dream. The dream of the Power Rangers together one more time.